Hello guys, welcome back to the 7-part series of how to heal from covert passive aggressive narcissistic abuse. So today it is part 4 of our series and it is the biggest mistakes I've made. So I have basically 4 parts to this. The first part is that I ignored red flags. And I will share like 3 of the red flags that I kind of ignored but are really important. And I feel like a lot of people may have also succumbed to this. I believe that God gives every single person here intuitive senses. And we know when something is off. We may not know why. At the moment, we may feel like, oh, that's just strange. Why would they say something like that? Or why did they behave that way? Or why did they do it that way? Like, we know when something just doesn't feel right. And I believe that those are our red flags. So the first red flag that I definitely noticed was not able to apologize. In Proverbs 27:5, it says, open rebuke is better than secret love. And one day, it was our first confrontation that we had, and I confronted this person and about them hurting my feelings. And I had confronted also her significant other. And I noticed there was such a huge difference in the way the significant other took it and the way my friend took it. And I noticed that the significant other was very open, was very willing to apologize, was very surprised that my feelings were hurt, and they worked it through and we were good. When I addressed, the CPAN, this person was very cold, unemotional, and then actually they thrusted the blame on me in the same process, and basically told me that, hey, it's because of what you did that this is what I thought. It's because of your behavior that this was. They weren't willing to say, it was almost like them stating, well, the reason why your feelings got hurt was it was you. Okay, well, that's odd. And that was such a red flag, and it was very hurtful, and that nothing really got resolved of that, obviously. And then it was just, unfortunately, snowballed after that. There were more other incidences where this person would not apologize for anything that they did. And so that's a red flag. The second red flag was never addressing issues and pretending that everything was fine. And like I said, with the CPAN in the first part video with identifying behaviors, is that their words and their actions don't match, and so it creates confusion. They'll say, oh, everything's fine, and then ignore you for the whole week. And obviously, if you live with them, it makes it very, very challenging. If even if you're friends with them, like them ghosting you, not texting you, all of these things, like, definitely adds to a confusion of the friendship. So anyways, so that was one of the other big ones that was a huge red flag. And in Proverbs 27:6, it says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. And so you have to kind of look at the type of friendship that you have with someone. Are they the type of friend who's willing to address issues with you? Because if they are, remember, like I said about love, that means that that person loves you. And obviously, if you care about the relationship, you're going to love them right back by wanting to fix the gulf that's been created between you. And I realized that, I would rather have a friend be honest if there was something wrong between us. Because it means to me that they see things in me that they feel like needs to change or needs to improve on. And, it's like that concept of iron sharpens iron. It's not just doctrinally, but it's also character, because the whole goal of us as Christians is to become more like Jesus. And if we see characteristics in other people that don't align with the gospel, our duties, I believe, is to encourage that acknowledgement of those wrong behaviors and then try and hopefully improve on them. And that's one of the things that we can do better as Christians, I believe. And it's one of the area that I feel like unfortunately, we fail a lot as Christians, because we are not willing to sit there and say, hey, I love you so much, but I'm noticing this, and I want you to know it's affected maybe not just me, but other people that you've interacted with, and it's not a good thing, and we want you to be aware of it, because well, this may affect your relationships, and I wouldn't want that to happen. And we have to do it out of love, obviously. And the third red flag was interrogative questioning. You know, I honestly, I felt, when the first time I started to notice these interrogative questions, I mean, like, there was definitely a sense of, all right, I'm backing off. I'm not even wanting to answer these questions because something's off on these. Because interrogative questions are not for friends. You don't interrogate your friends. You genuinely ask your friends, like, how are things going? What's been up? You know, like, these are questions that are open-ended. These are questions that you genuinely ask because you genuinely care. Not, oh, so who's in charge of it? Oh, what is this? It's like and also the voice and attitude that came with those questions, interrogative questions, revealed that the person had malintent and was using it against me. And so I sensed it, but I didn't know what reason they were doing it. And I remember the first time that they did that, because I had, you know, after being gaslit by this person, the level of trust unfortunately went really, really low. And I didn't want to tell them anything about my business. I didn't want to tell them anything about what was going on with me. So when I did share about my business, all of a sudden it became an interrogative questioning. And I just was like, okay, something's wrong here, and I don't want to answer any of your questions, and I don't want to be open right now. And that was the reaction I felt, while I also half answered the question because I didn't really want to say anything, but I also felt like I was being put in a corner. And come to find out, the person knew all of the answers to the questions, because that's what interrogator does. They already have a sense or a knowledge of what the answers are, and they're interrogating you, hoping to catch you fall, or to make you look bad in front of somebody else. And that was the whole point of why this person did it. And I always noticed that they did this in front of the same person. And that's when later I then realized what the whole point of their interrogative question was. It was manipulation, and it was triangulation. It was a way of basically trying to destroy my character in front of somebody else. And after that, I realized that was my red flag was correct. Like, the moment someone does that, that's not a person who actually cares about you. They're not looking at you with the best of intentions. The second mistake I had was I had tried to excuse their behavior early on, because I noticed that so many people did. Even their significant other would say, oh, you know, even they never apologize for anything. Even if they are wrong, they'll never apologize. And I just thought, you know, as a Christian, if we, and not just for CPAN, I'm talking about all of us as Christians, if someone in your life who has known you for a really long time has said they have always been like this their entire life, and it's a negative quality, that person needs to check themselves, but we need to check ourselves as Christians. Because we should not maintain being the same person all our lives, because that means that the gospel hasn't really affected us. You see, when we become a Christian and we believe in the gospel, that gospel transforms us into a new creature. We're not the same. We're not that person who couldn't apologize. We're not that person who couldn't take responsibility for our behaviors. No, we're a completely different person. Christ himself took on the sins of the world, and he did not have to. And he did that to show us mercy. And even though, yes, he gives us grace and mercy, we need to be able to bridge the relationships that we break, if at all possible. If the other person obviously doesn't love you back and isn't willing to reciprocate, then do as what we mentioned early in the last video. But that is only after multiple times of trying to work it out. If it hasn't, then you have to, you know, as Jesus said to his disciples, just dust your hands and your feet, right? And go to the next city. So in that sense, that's kind of what we're doing with one another. So, um, trying not to excuse our behaviors. It is so important for us to sharpen each other's sword by helping us recognize what is going on. And that was my mistake, was that I was listening to other people, and in listening to other people, even though I felt like that just doesn't seem right to me, like, why you're telling me that this person has always been this way for this many years and they've never changed, like, those should have been, I should not have excused it, even though everybody else seemed to. That was, I think, a huge mistake that I made. The third mistake was that I did not create my boundaries sooner. I remember thinking like Lot and Abraham, and how when their families got bigger and there were confrontations between the servants, Abraham and Lot decided to separate ways and part ways. That is sometimes what needs to happen for us when we start noticing that there is too much conflict. Sometimes the best route is to separate. That, you know, but you're still loving on them. I mean, Abraham still loved Lot enough to go and rescue him when he fell in the hands of those kings that basically kidnapped him. So you have to think that love is still there. There was no animosity, there was no bitterness on Abraham's part. That is what we need to come to in terms of our relationship with others who have hurt us or may have caused us frustration. We should create that boundary sooner. And that's one of the things I feel like I failed at, was that I didn't create it sooner. That is a mistake that I made. I think that it's important that we recognize after, like I said, after multiple confrontations, after you see all those red flags, create that boundary soon, so that way there's not as much heartache, and you can prevent it. And the fourth was that I engaged in conversation with them after multiple failed past conversations. And, you know, this reminds me of the Eve and the serpent, right? So God had warned Adam and Eve not to go to the tree in the middle of the garden, and Eve goes over there and engages in conversation with the serpent, who ends up lying to her about the tree and about, you know, the powers that it's capable of, because here we have a snake talking. So she conversed with the devil. And so in a sense, when you have someone who's very intelligent, very manipulative, it is so important for you not to continue engaging in conversation with them, especially if you've already recognized all of these red flags and all of these character, I would say character flaws, but really un-Christ-like behaviors, especially if they are a Christian, then absolutely that's what they are. And once you recognize it, don't engage in conversation. It's better if you can just step away from it or avoid contact and create those healthy boundaries for yourself, because if not, the longer you engage with them, that cycle continues over and over. And that was my big mistake, is that I was lured into a false sense of security multiple times, like, oh, so everything's okay, and the cycle would begin again and over until, like I said, it wasn't until the fourth cycle of this that God really like unscaled my eyes and had me see things truly the way they were, and then I understood what I was contending with. So with that, I pray that you guys don't make these mistakes. And if you've dealt with a CPAN, you may find other areas that maybe I did not mention. And if you have other ones to add, feel free to put them in the comment below. But I would say that those ones were probably the most prominent and issues that I definitely saw in this relationship, and that really made me go, whoa, I should have done this. And so I hope that this kind of gives you insight into, you know, being very self-aware of what's around you. And just one last thing to kind of share, you know, in scripture it tells us that bad company corrupts good character. And it is so important. We may not see, like the CPAN, we may not think that they made us into a worse off of a person, but the thing is, they may have caused a lot of mental taxation. And so I believe that who we hang out with could draw us more peace, more joy, or they can completely take all of that away from us. And I remember specifically telling them right before they were planning on leaving, I said, all I want is peace. All I want is, I was like, I want us to have a peaceful time. I want us to have a fun time. And one of the things, like I said, as a CPAN, if you're already on their bad list, they will do whatever it takes to get back at you. So it's their part of their revenge. It's their aggressive nature, right? So they did basically everything possible to destroy the peace that I had often tried to recreate over and over, but was failing. So again, be mindful of who you are interacting with, and just know that there are people around you who are not affected by them. And that was one of the other, I guess that I could add that as last number 5, is that my biggest mistake was that I kept a lot of this bottled up and internalized, rather than going to the church, which is sad. I should have gone to the church and probably have said something, and asked for help, and should have said, hey, can you intervene the way that scripture tells us to intervene. I think that was one of the bigger mistakes. I went to number 1, and then I went to number 2, and I think the mistake of number 2 was that I had allowed the significant other to sit in, but I didn't have another person present when I should have, to be the second witness, because it said 2 or 3 witnesses, and we should have done that. So that was another part I would say would be my number 5 failing, is that I did not have enough witnesses to garner that testament to the situation. And so I really implore the usage of the church and being involved and doing it in a loving way, and trying to do things the right way, the godly way. And so I hope that that just encourages you, and to know that I hope that our church members and also our church can really function in a way that just really helps us unite in the right way. Like, there is no malice on my part. It makes me sad that things went down the way that they did. However, I just pray that all of us are growing, and that we just learn to be the best version of ourselves. And I pray more than anything that you grow and have peace of mind and are able to become the best version of yourself, and hopefully not make the same mistakes that I did, and are able to recognize these behaviors, and hopefully be able to just, distance yourself from individuals if you start seeing it. I would say only after, if you've, addressed it with them in love, and if you notice that they're not willing to have it, or if they didn't apologize, then I think that's best to just, go ahead and walk away from it. Anyways, love you guys very much, and have a wonderful day. And I pray that God blesses you and helps you become the best version of yourself, and that you just live your Christianity with integrity. God bless you. May you live, thrive, and be healthy. Bye, guys.